have been trying to ease the pressure on consumers. Vietnam has waived an environmental tax on fuel. Japan plans to lift restrictions on coal-fired power plants to ensure electricity supplies. While India, one of the world's largest crude oil importers, has reduced taxes on diesel and petrol. Well, let's speak to our India business correspondent in Delhi, Archana Shukla. Archana, how much will this help drivers there in India?
Well, prices are not going to fall immediately. We haven't seen any change today. But what the tax cuts really do is it will prevent from prices from going up in the future. So far, since the crude costs have actually soared over the past few weeks, prices in India have really kind of stayed stable. And that's largely because the oil marketing companies, which are mostly state-owned, they have absorbed the rise in cost. But that has really, squeezed their margins. And while the government is definitely going to lose a substantial part of their tax revenues, they realize they do not have an option but to cut these taxes and give a breather to these oil marketing companies so that they eventually don't pass on these prices. It's also a crucial time. Some critical state elections are coming up, and price rises, especially fuel prices, is very politically sensitive here in India. Also, because India is a large importer of crude oil, nearly 85% of its needs comes from other countries. The pressure on costs and also in terms of supplies is quite high. So while we haven't seen similar images like we've seen in Philippines or in Sri Lanka, where people are queuing up at the pumps because the supply so far has stayed stable, the government says over the next 60 days worth of crude they have secured. But the government has been doing overtime work. They've used all their diplomacy. They're sourcing crude from as many sources as possible. And for the next 60 days, they say they are secure. The problem they're facing right now, which still needs to be sorted, is on cooking gas, which is where India has very thin reserves. And most of the supply, more than 90% of the imports, come from the Middle East, particularly Qatar. And that has been stopped. But one positive news there when yesterday Iranian government said that they would allow ships from friendly nations like China and India to pass through the strait. Possibly that over the next few days could give some sort of relief for Indian consumers here, because cooking gas prices have slightly gone up, and the government has cut supplies to industries and non-cooking use to keep the supplies to households really going.
Yes, you mentioned cooking gas. There are a lot of us are following the impact of that on India and other countries in the region on social media. Just talk to us about how families are being impacted by the shortages of cooking gas.
Well, government has been trying to ensure that households have supply to this cooking gas. So they have for now cut all industries that would require. They're rationing supplies to industries like fertilizers and others as far as the gas availability and supplies are concerned, so that people at home. But then the supplies to industries and industrial cylinders has come down. So restaurants, small businesses, roadside eateries, these are the ones who've actually been directly impacted. In some cases where initially there was, in the initial 2-3 weeks, there was some sort of panic buying and there was a bit of shortage at the gas companies. At that time, some, families started moving to electric cooking, while those who could afford could do, but there are also reports that those from the, economically weaker sections, some of them have actually gone back to wood fire cooking. These are some of the reports that we are getting, but the government at its end is trying to source. It's kept its diplomacy with Iran open. There were 2 LPG ships that were escorted out of the strait 2 days ago. It would reach today or tomorrow, and some of the supplies would be sorted. And that is what the government is trying to do, and also to see that households, especially for cooking gas, that supplies are in place.
Archana, thank you. That's the BBC's Archana Shukla in Delhi there.